That's pretty cool how they do that.
Great. Okay, so just a moment, let me make sure. Okay. So hey, Katie is going to share, somebody is already sharing their screen. Is that you, Katie?
It is, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, if you can move, so one, if y'all can remember the question and then pull out the next slide, which is the scopes of work that includes all the types. So again, what recommendations do you have on how to improve the connections between the scopes and the values, as well as the contractors? And or any other comments that you would like to make? And one other thing, just while we have, so I have Lee, where did Lee, Michael, Felicia, James. One other thing is, if you have questions about what these scopes mean, ask those questions so that you can fully understand what are these scopes, because I know we covered a lot of information. Michael.
Question. Yeah, before I think we start down the path of recommending suggested ways to improve, what are the ways, Bill, Bruce, you and your team are using now? Maybe we can just if you tell us what you're doing, then we can provide some input on what we see is missing from your plan to reach out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And you know, I hate to, this isn't a cop-out, but a lot of that is written in that draft diversity plan. But I'll just tell you just off the top of my head, what we would, this is early, first of all. Normally at 20% design, I'm like communicating with people over the phone on a regular basis because they know about the project and they are routinely checking in with me, and I'm giving them basic information because I don't want to bring them into a process that uses too much of their time when it's too early to connect. So what we would normally do is we'd wait till we got to about a 60% design level on those two first packages, early work package A and B, and then we'd start an outreach effort. And that outreach effort would normally include going to NAMAC, going to PBDG, going to Latino Built, to spread the information and try to generate as much interest as possible. When I see a list like this, I kind of think that it looks like just stock and standard, what you normally see from any project. And what I think sets this project apart, or sets some of our past projects apart, is that we're able to go in there and not just say, these are the types of work, but we have these categories. We have what is traditionally first tier category. We have this capacity building category, and we have this mini prime category. And so for that kind of differentiates this kind of project from others, because you're not just looking at a list of scopes like painting or walls or drainage. Particularly, I would add, when we're making an intentional effort to do capacity building, that conversation starts well ahead of 60%. That conversation starts just in general now across the community. It's like, who's going to stand? We've identified, I think, 6 or 7 scopes that you see on every project, yet there's no DBEs clinging to them. You know, you take painting and coating. The last time we had painting and coating was contractor was Billy Sewell, and he's no longer with us. And that's been a void ever since in DBE contracting. So that kind of outreach actually could start right now. So I'm probably rambling on, Michael. Does that give you some?
No, actually, you weren't rambling. And I've heard twice now that diversity strategy went out last month, but I was off for a month.
Yeah.
And disclaimer, I've got 2,022 emails to catch up on. So I've got to go find it, and I will. But yeah, I mean, as long as, I mean, you've been doing this for a very long time. So I don't doubt that you will do the outreach that's necessary to get the folks on the project that you need to get on it, and building capacity in folks. I have no complaints about what I've heard. And I doubt if I have any ideas about how you can improve your outreach, but I will listen. And if there is something I can contribute, I will. Thank you.
James?
You're up, James.
James? You're on mute, my friend. You're on mute, my friend. There you go.
Yeah. I'm, you know me. Y'all, I'm sure many of you would just like to mute me eternally until, but
No.
I'm just going to say this. We early on in this process talked about what ODOT could do in preparation for this project. And for one of the things we talked about was for them today, as we speak, is to look at every project that they're doing right now and begin to build capacity with DBEs. So when this project comes online, we would have at least a preliminary understanding of who's out there, who's acclimated to ODOT, and we could begin. This team could begin to utilize or at least see what's out there. And of course, that hooks up to the other broader community, construction community. One of the things that happened on many of these bridge projects and with the county and all is that we never knew what the universe was out there. The contractor was doing the work, obviously, but we never really got a clear picture of what the overall universe, and that includes people in the region, not just locally, but Seattle or Northern California or whatever it takes in order to really get an idea of what the population is out here potentially available to do this work. And that includes both contractors and workers.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized I was remiss in something before we move on. So Felicia was the COAC leader that reported out last time. So would someone graciously take that role this time? Pretty please, someone.
No volunteers?
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you, sir.
I was going to say I'd nominate James.
Yeah, James, you do it. James, yeah, because
Michael, you've been on vacation for a month. You're the one that should have the energy. Why don't you do it, Michael?
I'm not up to speed, Posey. I don't have 20 years, 40 years in the industry. Come on, man.
All right, go ahead. I'll report.
Okay, James, you do it. So I just want to clarify the recommendation that you just made, just so that I can understand it, which is, so when you said build capacity or understand the capacity, you mean of the DBEs relative to the existing ODOT work. That's what you mean?
Bill just did a green sheet, and I'm just suggesting you extend the green sheet out beyond just this project and to look at all the other major projects that occurred within the last couple of years and see who participated on these projects, look at what the possibilities are for evaluating these folks to be in a pipeline for this particular project we're talking about, and to use organizations like MCIP to begin right now, today, to build capacity. And what's very important for us to understand is that each one of these areas of work has critical elements to determine whether or not they're going to, at some point, be capable of performing this work. We can use the science that Bill and them are doing to be able to benchmark who's where and what their range is in their progression to be able to participate on these projects, i.e. people, a contractor who doesn't understand cash flow or has equipment issues or whatever. We got from now until the beginning of this project to evaluate all that and to be able to talk about how we can build that capacity before we even get to the project.
Right. Okay, I got it. All right. Can you write that one down? Because you get to report back out.
Oh, no, I can't talk and write at the same time. You should know that by now.
I don't know if Belinda had to step off, but you know, she's working with 2 or 3 small firms right now on a project that kind of exemplify what James is saying. Are you still there, Belinda? Or we lost her. She's got kids in the background.
Who else is on this?
Webb could probably speak to it.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just, you know,
Bill.
James is just talking about how, you know, what's the pipeline look like for DVEs? Yeah, for DVEs.
Yeah, I mean, it's relationship based. So, you know, again, you know, I don't say much. I don't think I'm allowed to say much in these meetings, but but if just like the lady was talking about, you know, the mini primes, and we should bump the number up. But James Posey said it perfectly. It's like this is generations to be able to get to where even a Raymore's at. We're 22, 23 years in the game to be able to gain that capacity, and we had to be a good subcontractor to go to the mini prime, you know, and then go into the GC position. So it's our outreach is now we're building those relationships with people, and we know what's out there, and that's how I can put every position that I'm reading on the DVE scopes of work right now from my 11 years of experience in doing this work. I can put a name or a DVE contractor that's doing this work to each name right now that I have a relationship with. And that's just the start of how we go about and strategically giving people opportunities that to help them be successful in this process. So, I mean, it's relationship building and being intentional about it is important of trying to get people in the right positions in each category that you see right there. That helps.
Yeah.
Thank you, Webb. Lee?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just want to piggyback on Mr. Posey's comments and Bill, challenge you a little bit. I'm listening intently, and I apologize I don't have my camera on. Not feeling my best at the moment, but what I'm not hearing, and I think this was a element that was I addressed last time, is the word intentionality. It sounds good, but if there's no specifics behind it, it leaves me wondering, what are you saying? And listening to the young man's sharing just now, it sounds very limited to me. What I'm not hearing is, how are you going to address non-union firms? Because I know the big push will be for union firms. That seems to be centric to a lot of what ODOT does, and building their capacity. How are you going to recruit them? How are you going to identify them? Number two, how are you going to, just what are you doing to research these firms besides just relationships? I haven't heard mention of the co-bid database, which is the state standard for establishing who is a DBE in this area. I would recommend an approach like we used on our last 2 big projects, to search that database and come up with those recommendations for your capacity building. And I apologize, I forgot my 3rd point, but those are the main things that I'm really listening for, and I'm not hearing it. So in addition with your green sheet, what are you doing towards those ends?
I don't, so the first one was union versus non-union, right?
Yes.
Should I address that one first?
Yes, however you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, so historically, I mean, I don't know if you are familiar with any of my past projects, but they're predominantly large light rail projects here in Portland. And traditionally, I was working for a union contractor that was the prime. And we traditionally had a mix of about 50-50 union, non-union DVEs. This project, you've got a non-union joint venture, and I could analyze this for you on the green sheet. You're going to end up with the flip. You're going to end up with the joint venture is going to perform 50% of the work, most likely as a non-union entity, and you're going to have 50% of the work subcontracted, and half of that will be union and the other half will be non-union. That's what the numbers will shake out. I can almost guarantee you.
Okay.
The COBID database, we use that all the time.
Okay.
But the caveat I got for you on the COBID database is that's where people go when they're trying to meet aspirational goals. We are much more intentional than that, and Webb, that's I think what Webb was trying to get at by saying he could match a name to each one of those scopes is our intentionality has always been focused on the local market, and the COBID database covers the entire state, and it's usually tough to get someone from Klamath Falls to come up and do work in the city of Portland, just like it's tough to get a Raymore to follow Hamilton to Eastern Oregon. Go ahead.
You do realize that the database can be searched by region, by state?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm a little confused on that one. And I did remember my third point. My third point is, since the construction is not starting for another 2-3 years, one of the things we did on our project was we began to identify firms who were not certified and encourage them to get certified, which helped our numbers. What type of efforts are you putting towards that as you're developing your answer? And I would really, I'm a little concerned about that statement that the database is used for aspirational goals only.
Let's go back to COBID. Let's keep pressing into that. I mean, I look at bid solicitations day in and day out from non-DVE firms, and it's basically they buy a computer program and it hooks up to the COBID database, and it sends a notification to every single one of those contractors, regardless of whether there's a connection there or not. It's just them checking the box. They could fill out the form. They could say they sent a notification to every single firm on that database. That's not how I've ever operated. You understand what I'm saying right there?
That's not what I asked.
Okay.
But so what I asked was using the database to identify firms that aren't on your target list for you to intentionally reach out to them.
Sure, we do that all day long.
Okay,
we do that all day long. We use the COBID site, and Jennifer is kind of my right hand for that. But there's a lot more intentionality in how we put projects together. Now, to your next point about capacity building and finding firms that either new firms or firms that need to add NACE codes or firms that have never done public works, those aren't as often that those take a little bit more nourishing. It's always our intention to do that. to broaden the pool. You know, that list that we put together of scopes where we see capacity building, it's been years since there's been someone in the market to fabricate rebar on site. There's like 4 million pounds of rebar on this project, and we don't have a DVE that can respond to it. So you know, that is, you know, most contractors aren't going to be able to have that conversation because they're not in a project that's formatted CMGC like this. They're in a rip and read environment where they're opening up bids on bid day and taking whoever is low. We're in a position on this project, just like other CMGC formatted projects, where we can identify scopes, work with the client, in this case ODOT, and make a plan that includes outreach, that includes technical assistance, to target firms, either existing firms or individuals that we think could start firms to respond to some of these scopes where there's currently voids.
So Katrina had a question, I think.
Katrina?
To unmute. So I was going to talk about capacity building. I get phone calls all the time from organizations that are asking for help with technical assistance on what does it take to become a contractor and meet those workforce requirements. And it's little tiny things that can take their business down if they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. I just can't say the technical assistance piece and then putting that out there when you guys are recruiting to build capacity. In the case of the iron workers that you just mentioned, there's probably not a lot of companies that can do it on that sort of scope. So that's probably not necessarily one where you might be able to build capacity with a smaller company, but there certainly are a lot of other ones. And so just thinking about what that technical assistance can be and making sure that if you're helping them, that they also have it in multiple languages, maybe doing something also bilingual. So just putting that out there. Thank you.
I'd kind of respond with two things there. Is first, this project's going to probably have the most unprecedented technical assistance that I've ever seen, judging by the willingness. And we've started writing to that in the diversity plan. So that's one point. But the second point, you know, Belinda maybe could speak to this, is like, a lot of our technical assistance over the years is project-based. In other words, we bring on a small sub and we triage them on the project and give them what they need. So Belinda, you could talk about NADA for a second, right?
Yeah, we've done it. NADA is a landscaper on our one of the Raymore jobs we're on right now, Division Transit, and essentially we're providing whatever assistance they need to make sure that they are able to fulfill the project requirements in terms of estimating assistance, just anything they need at this point. Another good example actually would be Advanced Tribal. We're also helping them build capacity right now. They are the sub putting up our shelters, which is steel erection as well as glass. And he knows the work. It's just he needs help in the office and filling out just exactly what you said, just that back office work. So right now we're assisting with that, and we plan to carry that forward here to Rose Quarter.
So just to speak to, I guess, since one of the examples that you just brought up, and I know that there is technical assistance, but so he bought a knuckle boom truck and he needed to get certified, yet he's a small company and was looking for like a resource to be able to partner up with somebody else And so I'm thinking the out of the box sort of technical assistance, like things like that. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, one of the critical things for me is how do you replicate yourself? How do we find 4 or 5 more Bill Bruces to be, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but we need at least 1 or 2 more you on this project in order to make this thing work. Is there a system? I know I know you got Webb and some of these other guys that are understudies for you, but is there a formalized advanced training program to get people in position like you to do what you do? Is that feasible?
I think you just gotta go project to project. I don't know. I'd kick that one to Terrence because he gonna say something to that.
Well played, Bill. How you doing, Mr. Posey? How's it going? So I think it is fair, James, that Raymore is that standard, I believe, of teaching and instructing and building capacity within for individuals like myself who have entrepreneur aspirations. I'm an electrician by trade, but I never had the opportunity to get that front office experience. And so the last year or so, Raymore has been doing that for me, right? I've been doing field engineering and having the ability to learn the front office with some great individuals. So I think that Raymore, it's hard to say, like, how do you create something in the midst of everything that's never been created, Mr. Posey? As you always say, we haven't seen this before. But I think Raymore has exemplified the desire to build people to that level. And as we move forward to I-5, I think people like myself, and you even mentioned Webb, who's a stud, right? Who has the ability to do a little bit of everything because he's been under individuals. You will see us get more and more an opportunity and then expand that and then work with other people to get that done. I think it's just going to be live relationship and opportunity.
Well, the thing I want to say about all that is you want to reward the behavior you want to see.
Right.
And if in fact you all are already doing this, the issue is whether or not you can scale up, magnify, make it bigger, grow. That when we really, and we're talking about the science here. This is a math issue. You all understand what I'm talking about. This is a math issue about whether or not we can have enough capacity to look beyond the Raymore model for other potential people like you, Terrence, to come in to be a part of the team to grow this thing and scale it up to where it could take pressure, because you guys got under a lot of pressure right now. You're under a lot of pressure. I know that.
Sir.
So
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, to relieve that pressure, it would be key to do that. And then the other quick thing I want to mention is minimizing you all's risk. Because when you do this stuff the way you all are doing it, the issue of risk becomes paramount in where you're trying to go. Bill is a phenomenal guy on safety, for example. When you got people who are inexperienced come into the project, I'm preaching a little bit here, but at the end of the day, you all have to figure out ways to be creative. And what I tell this COAC is to let you all do what you do best and to keep on doing what y'all are doing, because you got the perfect framework to make the stuff work.
I'll say one thing, trying to duplicate Bill, it is extremely tough, but I know people are afraid of the word intentional. And I can see that from Lee, because you haven't had a good end results from people saying it's intentional. But when you see a guy like a Bill Bruce and a Jeff Moreland Sr., it is intentional, and those things are bleeding down. It's a trickle down effect to myself, to Terrence, and to Belinda, where we're doing exactly what you guys are asking us to do. We do that on a day-to-day basis. So it's hard to duplicate a Bill, but again, the seeds are planted now. And so we're growing new staples that can take the football over to the goalpost, right? So I would say that I know people are afraid of this word intentional because a lot of people BS about the word intentional, but we true about it. And so that's one thing I would say as we're ending.
Thank you, Webb. So Michael, I know you care passionately about workforce, and I think it's a pretty cool story that Terrence's story around his workforce experience, and essentially he is the ladder of opportunity to then become the DBE, which is cool. What's your thoughts, Michael?
So thank you. Where my mind went when I hear Posey talk about Ray Moore and Bill Bruce and the work they've done. And then earlier on, we heard that No More Freeway folks and Elliott Neighborhood Association, they're pouring gasoline on the fire. And what happens is what they say in editorials, what they say in DJC, what have you, unless we have the ability to counteract their narrative, it's just people believe it. So what I think we could do, this group could do, is to be prepared to write editorials on, one, the benefits of this project to the community. Two, I don't see anywhere, I mean, we're talking about what Ray Moore has done historically, but where is it explained to the public anywhere? He doesn't have time to talk about what he's done and what he's doing for the community. He's too busy, putting people to work and uplifting folks. So I think we have an opportunity here to actually talk about one of the best kept secrets in Portland. I mean, maybe people on this call know about what he's done for others in the community, but I bet the vast majority of folks in this community, white, black, brown, striped, don't have a clue. So what a great story to tell, right? Just to tell the story and then have editorials, have people writing to the editors saying what great work is going on this project. So
Michael, can you report this out on the next, when we get to the larger group? Because I've shared this with everybody. It's just kind of creepy for me to sit here and watch this fantastic stuff going on without the rest of the community knowing about it. And, people get tired of listening to me, but Michael, if you could report that out, because I don't think ODOT has done a good job. I don't think ODOT, I don't think this group, I don't think anybody is telling the phenomenal story that's going on with Ray Moore and what our opportunity is. So I'm hoping that you will be able to report this and we report back out.
I will. I'll go there for sure. And the question, Amber, was, what do I think about this young man? I don't know him from Adam. I've never seen him before, right? But what I think is the only way to grow from your bags to being able to sign a contract and to actually either one person or 3 or 15 is to have the experience that he says he's getting from the exposure Ray Moore's giving him. You don't get people walking out of college or out of high school and going, I think I'll be a contractor and be successful. You need generations of experience. It's like, we've seen people fail, right? But they show up at the table, they have no experience, they have no money, they have no bonding capacity. And the biggest thing is they don't have experience. They don't have people who will share with them what the pitfalls are in order to be successful. So this is a guy's story that needs to be told, right? I mean, we should not only tell his story, but many more should be documented. Here's a perfect opportunity. How long is this project? Years long. It's not starting for years, right? A couple of years, but it's years long. A great opportunity to hire or to have someone on this project document the successes, right? And some of the obstacles so we can, that we overcome in the process of building this historical project. It's an amazing opportunity. And I hope we don't lose it because we've done this before. Bill Bruce on Interstate. I remember great things that happened. I was just trying to put people to work on that job, but that story wasn't told, right? So here's an opportunity for us to tell it in a way that will last for a very long time if we keep it alive in the editorials in the newspaper, in the Scanner, the Observer, whatever, right? Vehicle we use, we should tell the story.
Michael, I would say the story is told. Raymore is the story. Affordable Electric is the story. Just Bucket is the story. We're all walking, talking contractors that have benefited from the process that Bill is saying and James Posey is saying. This is the best way to do this. This is how you create the next generation of contractors. I mean, we're 15, 20 years later, seeing where, the three companies I just listed are where they're at based off of this green sheet and the science behind being intentional about how we're going about putting people in a position to be successful. So it's not documented as much, but you can look at a lot of.
I see you. Yeah, I see you. Right, I see you. I see Just Bucket. I see Michael Martin. I see minority contractors, the bigger ones, right? Some of the smaller ones. But my point is, how many of the public actually know what you're contributing to the pipeline, right? we talk about apprenticeship programs or pre-apprenticeship programs feeding the pipeline, but we don't talk nearly enough about the contractors that are sowing the seeds and building the next generation of contractors. We don't talk about it. Yeah. Have you seen an article in the Oregonian or the Scanner or the Observer or the DJC about the work you do? Any contractor. I don't recall. Maybe in the last 30 years, there's been maybe one, but we need to tell the story, man. I believe that this is a story worth telling.
25 years ago, Renee Mitchell, the Metro section.
I know Renee. I don't remember the article, but I know her. If she told the story, she told it well.
It was good.
I think that's perfectly captured at least in my past life. When we did big projects like this, we used to write folders and folders of lessons learned. So I think engineers and contractors know how to write. We write a lot. You're asking for publication and getting that information out there on the how-tos, step by step, how to make another Bill Bruce.
Make a Bill Bruce for Dummies. That's the new book.
×5.
So we have 1 minute. So James, if you can recapture your thoughts, and Michael report out that one item. It's been a really great conversation. And I do think, Michael, bring up your point and let's talk about it here in a minute.